Hey YouTube, how's everybody doing? My name is JC. Welcome to the Cuban Redneck Kitchen. Thank you for stopping by, and a special thanks as always to those who have subscribed. If you haven't already done so, man, show me some love. Hit that little button. Really helps grow the channel. Anyhow, today we have a special request, and that is Cuban Flan. Last week we did a simple video on crème de vie, and within the hour or so, I got multiple requests or multiple questions on both Facebook and on the website, CubanRedneck.com. That's probably the best way to reach me, asking if I knew how to make a Cuban flan. So you're probably asking yourself, what do people mean by that? Well, as they say, there's 165 million ways of skinning a cat. There's also 165 million recipes for flan. The Cuban flan is, in my opinion, unique in three different aspects. Number one is texture. It has a little bit of bite. You have to cut into it. If you get something at a restaurant that you shake it around and it moves around like jello, that ain't it. And by the way, most of the time, very, very rare occasions when you go to a restaurant, and even if it's a Latin or Cuban restaurant, you get an authentic Cuban flan. But with that said, number two will be, for me, sweet. I've seen recipes out there with like corn syrup and sugar and either simple syrup. No. A flan that is too sweet, once you take 2 or 3 bites out of it, it will kill your palate, and all you will taste from there forward is sugar. So no, you don't want your flan to be overly sweet. The third, and kind of flexible on that, is the caramel. I personally like my caramel tippy-toeing on the bitterness, just so that it, blends or kills a little bit of the over-sweetness of the dessert itself. So with that said, if you want to impress, nothing speaks louder than a killer dessert. So let's get cooking. All right, before we start talking about ingredients, I want to talk about how to cook your flan. In the past, I've shared my recipe with a lot of people, and they seem frustrated that they can't, execute correctly. I think a lot of that has to do with how I cook my flan. This is my favorite containers for making flans. For you millennials out there, this is how we used to take our lunch to work. Especially if you work in a factory or a mill a couple of decades ago. Basically, the seal, the way that this thing seals is perfect for making not only flan, but anything that you want to do on a double boiler. So with that said, recently I went around town out here in Southwest Florida because I wanted to make several flans at one time, looking for one of these guys or looking for extra ones, and did not find one. So yes, you can order them online, but they are not as easy found or available as they once were. This can be a hassle, and because of that, I decided to make this recipe usually using regular pots and pans. For this, you are going to need a 2.5 quart container like this. It must be oven proof, no plastic on the lid cover, and it does need a lid. Some people use aluminum foil. I don't think that works well. I will be using foil anyway because I don't want my steam to escape. The second thing you're going to need is something to hold your water for the double boiler. You could use a frying pan like this. However, I find that it's kind of dangerous to get this in and out of the oven, especially when it's up, full of water up to the lid. For that reason, a deeper container like this is my choice. However, just make sure that your handle is not touching the lid so that the flan sits flat on the bottom. And with that said, let's talk about ingredients. As far as ingredients are concerned, here's what we need. We need 5 extra large eggs. If you just have large, add 1 more. We need a pinch of salt, some sugar, a can of sweet condensed milk, a can of evaporated milk, and some vanilla extract. The making of our Cuban flan begins by putting 1.5 cups of sugar over medium heat. We're going to create what is called a dry caramel. Note that this may take a little bit to come to temperature,
but it is quite easy to burn, so you need to keep an eye on it. As the sugar starts to melt, rotate the pan around to make sure that all the walls are covered. But whatever you do, don't use any utensils. Pro tip, consider having a damp rag around where you can rest the pan and lower the temperature if you feel that it's getting too hot. This one is borderline. 5 more seconds and I would have had to start over. After you have covered all the walls of the pan with caramel, it is time to let it cool off and turn our focus into the mix. We need to separate our yolks from the whites using whatever methods you find the most fitting. Also note that I said 5 eggs on the ingredients, but I'm actually using 6. Please go to CubanRedneck.com for the full details. Once you have separated your yolks, add the 2 cans of milk to the mixing bowl. A splash of vanilla, a pinch of salt, and mix thoroughly. By now your caramel should be a little bit cooler, or at least cool enough to where it's firm. If this is the case, pour the mixture into the caramel pot. Alright, grab a piece of aluminum foil slightly bigger than the lid and secure it in place in order to lock all the vapors. Then place the smaller pan inside the bigger one and fill it with water to about the halfway point. Once ready, we are going to move this into a preheated 375-degree oven for 1 hour. When that time has expired, we're going to turn off the oven and let it sit in there for an additional hour. Then, after the second hour has expired, we can take it out and let it cool down at room temperature before putting it into the fridge for 8 to 12 hours.
Alright guys, so it's the day after, and as I said, this particular flan was an experiment because I have never cooked a flan in this type of pan. I always use my little canister. So here comes the moment of truth. Can you cook a flan on regular pots and pans? We'll see. We need a dull blade, and what we're going to do is run the edge, so make sure that it's separated. Try not to make it do any damage to the walls. That is looking pretty good. And so here comes the moment of truth. I'm going to put our plate over it and flip. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Looks pretty good. Made a little spill there. Plenty of spare caramel. Perhaps I should have used a bigger plate. I was just trying to look for something shallow. Other than the spill, I think that's pretty successful. The taste should be on point. This is a recipe that I've done 100 times. Obviously not going to cut into it because that's for dinner, but I'll keep you posted.
Please support this channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing. And don't forget to hit that notification bell. Thank you.